Hello, Jordan.
What's up, Michael?
Jordan.
Oh, God.
Do you have an inner monologue?
Yeah, of course. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about it?
Well, first of all, I'm very distracted by what's going on with your microphone setup. Are you going to hold that the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay. All right.
It'll work.
All right. So,
oh, man, I forgot that we're on video pod.
30 to 50% of people. This is just something I read on Twitter, so take this with a grain of salt.
So it's a fact.
So it's a fact. Don't have an inner monologue.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've heard of that. I've heard that a certain percentage of people, I didn't know it was that high, though. But yeah, I've heard that there are people who don't have it. I was talking to Paul Carter about this like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, did you know that some people don't have an inner monologue? And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, when you are thinking, do you ever like talk to yourself in your head? I was like, yeah. He's like, there's a lot of people who don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, like, what do they have instead?
Nothing.
Right? Like,
nothing.
Their brain is silent?
I think.
Like, what's going on in their head?
My theory is that it's all of their like thinking comes from external stimulation. Nothing comes from inside. And so actually the reason I asked you this was because the time when I asked you if you're ever like sitting on an airplane, and by the way, that's making a lot of noise. David's not gonna be happy, but we're just like,
really?
Yeah. One of when we started podcasting 3 years ago, one of the core rules that he told me was the microphone goes on the table. Don't touch the microphone. Leave this all in, by the way. And like, don't like bang the table or do anything because it makes a lot of noise. And literally while I'm like, even, I mean, I guess.
You can hear it? You can hear it in your ears?
Like every time you like
God
move
damn it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to use the bike.
Get the bike out of here. Use the bike on the next call. Let's set this up nicely.
I just feel so sedentary already, though. You know what I mean?
Dude, this is actually something I wanted to podcast about. I've been thinking about making a setup where the camera is like in the corner of a room. So you'll be able to see the entire room. It's like in the top corner of a room. And then the microphone is like a headset with a mic.
Yeah.
And then we podcast.
I want one of those.
I don't know, we get like a TV on the wall or something. But then instead of sitting there talking to you, I'm like walking laps around the room talking.
Yeah.
And then I can come to the camera to make a point, or I can just like keep walking and talking. Almost like like a phone call. But then the video aspect would just be like me walking around like a prison cell, essentially.
It would sort of be like the real world type video. Remember how they had like cameras in the corners of the rooms and you could just see, yeah, that'd be cool.
And then we could just get steps in while we pod.
Dude, I don't like this microphone because I just have to sit down like this. I want to have that headset that I can just walk around with for sure.
Well, especially like I do, 4 hours a month of this and 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever, mentorship Q&A twice a month. But otherwise, I'm not doing podcasts or calls or sitting, and I still feel like it's too much sitting video.
Mm.
And so for you, you're doing multiple podcasts a day. Like I can't even imagine.
Now I feel bad because I was on a podcast yesterday with a woman and I was doing the whole bike thing and I was holding the mic and she didn't say anything about the sound, but hopefully it wasn't that bad. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I think most people have more like social IQ and capability to just let something like that slide, whereas I don't.
You're just gonna J it hard.
Yeah. I am. Well, David jaded hard on me, so I'm really just paying it forward.
Man, yeah, David J.D. hard. Okay, respect.
David's a man of his craft, really completely dialed in, and so he knows the audio engineer podcast world better than anyone, and so I'm listening to what he says.
Smart. Yeah, that's smart.
I have a question for you.
Clips Nation question?
No, we're not there yet.
Okay.
But just a random like human interaction, human psychology, behavior / does this annoy you question.
Okay, cool.
Or not even does it annoy you. It annoys me, but how do you handle, and I'll just read it and bless this person's heart. I don't mean any ill will towards the person who sent this submission.
Someone sent us a question?
Not a question. You'll see. An expectation. Kind of. I don't know. It probably comes from a good place. Let me know.
Someone sent us a comment about our podcast.
No.
Okay.
I'll just read it.
Okay, read it.
Hi, Jordan and Mike. I'm a personal trainer based in, would love to set up a time to chat about the mentorship. I've been training one-on-one in person for almost a decade, looking to transition online. Let me know what time works for you.
You don't like the presumption that we're just going to hop on the call?
Anytime that there's like an expectation thrust upon me, like rather than an ask, feels so ENTJ and just like makes my stomach, like sometimes it makes my stomach drop. Sometimes it just like gets me. But one, I never know how to reply. Like, hey man, I actually don't do phone calls like in life. So here's a link to the website. If you have any specific questions, let me know. Maybe that's the right answer, but I'm curious how you handle situations like that.
Well, there's two questions. There's one, how I handle it, and then another, how I feel about it, right? Like two different questions, right? It's like, you know, how I initially feel about it is like, what the fuck? Why do you think we're going to have a conversation about this? But then I have to think, okay, maybe in their mind, they just assumed that's how it worked, right? So like, cool, I get it. Like people do that to me about the inner circle. Hey, like I want to ask you some questions. Like, here's my phone number. Give me a call whenever you have a chance. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, I think it's just like they don't know that it's sort of a crazy thing to do. So it's still in my head. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. But, how I actually respond is usually I'll send a voice memo and I'll just be like, hey, what's going on? Thanks for reaching out. Really glad you're interested. We don't do that. Like we don't do phone calls. We have a lot of people who have questions about it. So we have an entire, page explaining how it works. If you have any further questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to discuss there, but I'm not doing phone calls right now, which, to be fair, that might be enough for them to be like, hey, this isn't worth it for me. If you don't have the time to get on the phone with me, then I don't want to invest, which is respect. It's great because if I then do take on that phone call, then they're going to expect so much more. They're going to expect that level of one-on-one discussion once they join, and that's just not what we offer. So yeah, I go hard and say, hey, thank you so much, but yeah, that's not what we offer.
Even if it was like, so when you were in the weeds of building the inner circle, and I think this was like pre-admin, or you were doing all of like the basic stuff yourself, letting people into the Facebook group, onboarding, I don't know, 2016, 2017. If someone sent you that email, that's how you would reply, with a voice memo?
No. Back then I would have gotten on a call with them.
Oh, okay.
Back then I would have. I did so many calls at that point in my career. I was just on calls all the time, messaging people. Dude, I literally, I had people message me their phone number so I could give them, I would call random people all the time. Like it was, yeah, I would do phone calls all the time because I knew once I got on the phone with them and we had a conversation, they were going to join. Like there was no question. Once they could get to know me a little. Once they could get to know me and see like my intentions were good and I'm really here to help no matter what. So yeah, now, no, I don't do that. But you know who does is Susan. Susan actually does it. Susan, she tells me like, we all hate doing email. Like it's not fun. So she said, if people want to talk about the inner circle, she just hops on the phone with them. She still does that all the time.
I do prefer email to call. And I just realized something mid conversation here is that because you're an obliger, you're probably a bad person to ask this question to.
Yeah.
Because you in general are like, oh, someone like expects something of me? Like I want to appease them.
Yeah, it's so true. It's exactly right. Yeah, it's exactly right. I don't feel like, I don't like the idea of letting someone down in that sense. Like, oh, they felt that way. And then, yeah, it's exactly right. We need to ask another rebel.
I need to ask another rebel. I don't know any other rebels.
Did you reply to that email?
It just rolled in like an hour before we jumped on here.
Got it. Okay. So no.
No, I have it sitting in an open tab so that I remembered to talk about it here.
Do you want me to send them a voice memo?
We'll see. I'm going to think about it.
Or maybe they'll listen to the podcast.
Maybe. And I might actually use this as an opportunity to type up a canned response for times when people reach out expecting a phone call.
Smart.
Because that's probably something that'll happen, I don't know, 1 to 5 times a quarter and might even go up going forward.
especially now that we're Clips Nation and things are just exploding.
Clips Nation. We're posting basically daily, not every day, basically daily, cross-platform.
I've slipped a little bit. I was sick, traveling, but with your reminders at night, I'm going to be posting every day.
Are you putting it on me?
Yeah. If you text me, it will happen. If you don't text me, there's a strong chance it won't happen.
Good. I'm fine with that.
But as long as you say, hey, post.
Well, it's funny because in my mind, I had felt like I didn't want to be. In my mind, I'm like, oh, well, he knows, like, we're doing daily posts, and he does, like, it felt like an annoying thing. Like, if someone was constantly like, hey, remember to do this, it's like, I know, we said we were going to do this, so I'll just do it. But it's beneficial for you because you actually like do forget things, and then the reminder's like, oh, nice, I will do that.
No, it's sort of like, you know how like Gary knows what he should eat at dinner, but he still wants you there with him, like just to make sure. It's like, I know that I should post, but if you text me, it's like, okay, like now I really got to do it because I know you're watching. It's like, it's funny when Susan and I first started working together, she would do the same thing. She'd be like, I feel like I'm annoying you. I'd be like, no. I need you to do this. And I say the same thing to my podcast producer, Tony. I'm like, after we have a call and I'm supposed to do a podcast, I'm like, I need you to text me and remind me over and over again until it gets done. So it just keeps me accountable.
It's good. That's great self-awareness and good to like set up systems and dynamics with people you work with to benefit from that.
Yeah.
From
and
that
you're
like,
a
aspect
J,
of
so I know it's easy for you to just be like, hey, fucking do it.
It's so well. Here's where it's not easy. You're like, I like when you come up with a new creative way to do it. Be like, people love it when we post. Like, keep going with the post. You're like, I want it to be different and exciting every time, not just like, hey, you got to post still.
But if you come at me with like a little bit of anger or resentment, that'll make me really do it, like immediately.
I'm not one to like fake anger just to get a response.
Well, you could though, like Michael Jordan style. You could create a fake scenario.
I don't know if I have any of that left in me. I think my next like big run in life is going to have to be built on habits and systems and like good and like gratefulness and like basically like good motivation. I don't know, like we were going to talk about in episode 100, we won't go deep into this, but I think I'm just...
Don't get me started.
I think I'm too content and like in like a solid place in life to dig down into that like deep, dark anger as a form of motivation to do things I don't want to do. I think it's going to be way better to just mostly try to do things I want to do them consistently, shoot shots every day. You don't necessarily need to put in 16-hour days, but like be consistent and like compound results over time rather than like think about some like thing someone said 17 years ago that like irked my teenage self. And now I'm going to like rely on that to do my next 3 hours of work. It's like, that's not how I want to feel on the day to day.
You got a dollar cost average your work every day, just a little bit every day,
Wow.
right? How good was that?
For all of my finance and investor people listening to the podcast, Jordan's a wizard. Dollar cost average.
I was the whole time you were talking, I was like, that's the line I'm going to say. And I was hoping for that reaction. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm actually, that's exactly right. And a great use of that term.
Yes.
You still been dollar cost averaging?
Dude, every month.
Good.
Every month.
Good man.
Dollar cost average, invest every month.
Good man.
Little bits.
Good man.
Dave Ramsey had a great post recently about, I just like his finance advice. He's just so simple about it. Actually, you know what? He made a post that inspired one of my posts. He made a post, and this is important, and we could talk about this. We might even be able to clip this. Clips Nation coming in hot. Dave Ramsey is a finance guy. Super smart from what I can tell. And I just really like him. He's very well spoken, great content. He had this post, it was like 7 baby steps for like getting your finances in order, something like that. And it was a great post. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do like the 7 baby steps to getting your health and fitness in order. And it's one of those things where I think you and I were talking about it on the mentorship Q&A yesterday.
On the live yesterday.
Yeah, where I think a lot of people, especially in the fitness industry, coaches they don't know where to find content ideas. And obviously, number one, the content ideas come from the questions your clients ask. Answer those questions. But you're going to answer the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. I think it was Dylan who had asked the question, like, how do I spice it up? How do I make things new? And one of the suggestions was get out of the fitness industry and look at other industries in which people are making content and take ideas from them, right? Because this way you can look at different ways they're presenting things and then transfer it over to fitness. So if you're sort of stuck with not sure what, not only what content to make or what questions to answer, but how to answer those questions in a new way, get out of the fitness industry and go look at other industries. Because if you just look at the vacuum, the echo chamber you're in, you're never going to get new ideas.
It's absolutely right. And we're not saying copy paste someone's caption and use
Correct.
that as your own,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about borrowing the structure and format of a particular post within the fitness industry or in a different industry that, I mean, one, performs well, or two, just really resonates with you and is something that, like, just like you did with that Dave Ramsey post, you're like, oh, this is a great idea that I can easily do for fitness that my followers will love to see and will benefit from.
I like Dave Ramsey because he really targets the average person, and he's very good at breaking it down in a no bullshit way. Like, I really think him and I are similar, just in different industries and how we educate. So I don't know. I've learned a lot from him. I like him a lot. So if anyone wants some finance advice, Dave Ramsey.
I'll go somewhere with it that is interesting to me, but like probably not to most people. To double down on what you just said, you guys actually, one thing you do that is very similar on a specific instance is you break something down in a way that I wouldn't call like 100% optimal or 100% accurate or even like 100% true or right, but it is the proper, both of your intention is to do it so that the maximum number of people can actually understand and execute on that advice. And here's the example. He says, when you're paying off debt, you should pay it off if you have like student loans, credit card debt, like someone who has like 3, 4, 5, like different sources of debt.
Pick the easiest one first.
The smallest amount of debt first. When in reality, that is going to cost you money over time. What I would, ISTJ, I would be like, and even just like logic, math numbers, like you should pick the one with the highest interest rate and you should pay that one off first. But he has worked with enough people, and his theory on this is, no, you pick the smallest one first because people need momentum. People need to see that checkbox. People need to see, this is so overwhelming. I have 6 sources of debt. I need to get one paid off completely. I need to like see that progress. I need to see one down. Okay, now I'm moving on to the next one. And then you go to your, say you have 3K in credit card, 4K in here, regardless of the interest rate. And it reminds me, for example, of your, do you know what I'm going to say actually?
No, I don't.
Of goal body weight times 12. It's
look,
this might not be like technically scientifically the exact way to calculate your calorie target, but a lot of people see the words lean body mass and see like, oh, 1 minus 0.3, and then you multiply that by something just like gone. You lost them.
Yeah, they stop. Exactly. Yeah.
And so
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So when you said you guys are similar, I think you're right in a lot of ways.
Man, that's such a good point. And I didn't even think about that in terms of the finance. I didn't realize that would actually cost you more in the long run if you actually do it. But I bet, just like you said, he's seeing people who they try and go for the largest interest rate first, but it's so overwhelming, so then they just stop paying it off, so it ends up costing them more because they don't do it. So in his mind, he's like, I just want you out of debt. That has to be the first part. Get you out of debt by any means necessary. So if that means building momentum, starting off by using the lowest amount to pay first, like, cool, we'll start with that, because at least at some point you'll be out of debt, versus if you start with the largest interest rate and you're like most people, you're going to be buried and be overwhelmed, and it's not going to work anyway. So his whole thesis is get you to take action, build momentum from there, and see those results. It's the exact same strategy in fitness. That's I didn't realize that. That's super interesting.
Let's fire up a question here. Got a couple nice fitnessy, SEOable topics here. Before that, a little fun brainstorm. I think a lot of coaches when they're first starting out. I actually know a lot of coaches when they're first starting out because I did it, you did it, like just want to take on clients. And it doesn't really matter who. It's just like, I want to start working with people, which at that point is probably the right mindset. And a lot, there are certain limiters, but you're taking on all kinds of different people. But as you progress, you start to learn that like you probably shouldn't have taken on certain clients for certain reasons. And so I thought it'd be a fun brainstorm here to talk about like the worst types of clients, or like who you shouldn't take on. And I'll give you 3 examples that just came to mind recently. One, this is a rare instance, but I've found it unbelievably true across my career, is when someone applies for coaching for someone else, never works out. Never. Could be like an adult child applying for their parent, like my dad's in poor health, like applies for coaching, and then at the end, like fills out all his dad's info, and at the end says like, hey, I'm actually Josh, Steve, whatever. This is for my parent. Doesn't work out. Could be for like I've actually had a husband sign his wife up, like paid for it. I don't think she necessarily wanted to. This was many years ago, but very difficult. Always very difficult. That's one. 2 is the standard like run-on sentence application. If you get a coaching application and there's this much straight text and it's just like poor grammar, just like all over the place, you got to remember.
No breaks, no white space, just in your words, a word salad, just like, not good.
That's what emails are going to be like. Communication's going to be hard. Like that ends up being, not necessarily someone you shouldn't work with, but it's going to be a more difficult client, something to pay attention to. And another one that's a little more obvious, but again, when you're first starting out, you're like, I feel like I can help everybody. Someone with goals that are outside of your scope of practice, like just on an ethical, moral level, but also on a practical, like if you're a power lifter and someone wants to run a marathon and you're like, I need money, and they're willing to sign up, I could probably help them. In powerlifting, you can rationalize like, oh yeah, if we could get them, but
get you stronger, you're going to be a better runner.
Yeah. which is true. But if it's like, okay, my goal is marathon performance, and you're like the powerlifting guy, it's like you have to just say no and refer out, and you're both going to benefit massively in the long run.
Yeah. Man, I love the first one that you said, like when they apply for someone else. That didn't happen a lot, but it did happen a fistful of times. And you're 100% right. Not only like did it not work out once it actually happened, but it was a mess. Like onboarding, it was like, hey, I know you filled all this out, but I need them to fill this shit out. And I need to have like this conversation. Like you just told me what you perceive, but this doesn't give me any information from their mind. So you literally have to have them fill it out, and then you have to get them to communicate, and they didn't want it in the first place. So communicating with them is a bitch. So like they don't reply as quickly, like they're not as invested. They often feel like resentful that the person wanted to sign them up anyway. It's a terrible situation. And one of the tricky situations with that is when, let's say it's the husband-wife scenario, which did happen a number of times, or the husband-wife or the wife-husband, whatever, where the husband wants to coach with you and he also wants his wife to coach with you. That's also tricky because then you're already going to work with the husband, but then the husband is trying to push the wife on you, or I had it in reverse as well. The wife wanted to work with you, but she wanted the husband to work with you as well. And it was like, it was so difficult. I had multiple like, hey, maybe we can just do our check-ins together in the same email. And it was like, this is a bad idea all around. If someone wants to work with you, they should be independently reaching out to you on their own. And if someone says like, hey, I want to sign up my husband, wife, kid, whatever, parent, say, cool, have them fill out this form from their email. Because if someone else is doing it, dude, you're 100% right. That is a bad situation.
It's just, you hit the nail on the head too with long response times and one-word answers, which is something you don't see. Like really very rarely in coaching are you seeing one-word answers across the board. But I would get us like assessment replies where people sink a half hour, 40 minutes to like give you really detailed answers. And one-word like to like open-ended questions. one word answer, one word answer, one word answer. It's like, okay, this isn't going to be good.
The worst was like when you leave it, have an open-ended question like, how are you feeling, for example? And in, if they just say good, it's not what you want, but like, all right, at least you're feeling good. The worst is like when you say like, how are you feeling? And they say not good.
Terrible.
And like, that's all they say.
Don't explain.
All right. You want to tell me what's going on? Why you're not feeling good? Like is like, it's so true.
Yeah.
The other one, and I know like this goes into what you were saying in terms of like different goals, or goals that you're not educated on. It's along those same lines, but someone who has an issue that you're not educated on. Like, for example, if someone came to me and said they had a thyroid issue and they were not willing to be medicated, that was a no. And it was because I don't know how to work with someone who doesn't have healthy thyroid levels. If you're medicated and your thyroid levels are up to a healthy level, great, I can absolutely help. But if you have below normal or above normal thyroid levels, I don't know what to do. So I even put like in my sheet, I said, here are disqualifications immediately. If you have this and you are not medicated, I cannot work with you. If you have this and it's not being taken care of, I cannot work with you. If you are currently struggling with binge eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, I cannot work with you. I had like an entire list of disqualifications so that people would know like what I can and cannot take. And I would also have a list of what I expect of you as my client and what you can expect of me as your coach. I had this in a whole PDF that would be sent to them before they signed on. So it was like, all right, cool. Like once they send me all the answers to the questions, I decide this might be a good fit. Here's what we need to get out of the way from the very beginning before we send any money, before anything. I cannot work with you. I have this, or this. In terms of coaching, I expect you to do this, this, and this. And in terms of your coach, you can expect this, this, and this from me, which I think from the very beginning didn't solve 100% of the problems, but solved like a significant percentage, 90, 95% of potential issues.
It's a great idea. The eating disorder one is huge. If that's not your specialty, like someone struggling with an eating disorder, and the worst part is that it's an abundance of empathy that will often make a coach set aside their rationality and be like, oh no, I will be able to help this person. It's like, no, they're struggling with a disorder that you aren't qualified to help them with. That needs to be referred out. Another thought just came into my mind. By the way, we're not saying that if someone runs and also wants to get into strength training, that you shouldn't take them on as a client. We talked to Deb asked a question about this in the Q&A yesterday in the mentorship, and obviously, like there are times when a strength coach is going to work with a runner on lifting weights, which is super beneficial and a good thing. But, an elite level marathon runner, if for some reason wanted to hire you for,
Even if they're not an elite level marathoner, the difference is you can write their strength training program, but you better not try and write their fucking running program if you don't know how to, like, I can write a strength program for a marathon runner. I cannot write their running program. I don't know how to do that. I don't know the first thing, how many miles, what tempo you should be at, what heart rate we're shooting for. Like I haven't been educated on that. So like,
exactly.
If you want to do the strength training program with the knowledge of what runners go through, great. But don't be like, if they say, hey, could you also write my running program? Absolutely the fuck not.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. YouTube Clips Nation, YouTube Clips, YouTube at Personal Trainer Podcast on YouTube, by the way, if you're interested. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Personal Trainer Podcast, making high frequency, content with just fire captions, by the way.
Whoever's writing those.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really something. I wonder if anyone can guess.
Something else.
Cardio or weight training for fat loss?
Do you want to begin with this one?
Look, here's the bottom line. I think the majority of us know this. In order to lose fat, you want to be eating fewer calories a day than you burn on average over time consistently. Really doesn't matter what you're doing from a weightlifting and cardiovascular perspective if the end goal is just see the scale go down, lose body fat. Only restricting food intake and not doing any physical activity while not being good for your health is also going to lead to subpar results on your fat loss journey. One, more of the weight you lose is going to be muscle tissue rather than just fat mass, which from a health and aesthetics perspective isn't something that any of us are interested in, unless you just have so much lean mass that you want to lose some lean mass, which is a problem that basically no one has. Cardio actually burns more calories on average per bout than strength training. Now, what if you're doing like, I don't know, some crazy circuit where you're working super hard and you compare that to a cardio session that's very low intensity? Sure, there are some strength training workout routines where you're burning more calories per minute than certain cardio routines. That being said, on average, you're burning more calories through cardio than you are through weight training. That being said, weight training is more important to be the pillar of your exercise regimen during a fat loss phase for many reasons. One, you're going to, like I said before, you're going to retain lean mass. Two, getting stronger is just a good thing for health and for life. Three, this is debatable, but I actually go with the bro science side of this more than the science side of this. When you retain muscle during a deficit / build muscle around maintenance or in a slight surplus, and you've made weight training part of your habit and routine and lifestyle, and you consistently do it over time, and you end up years down the road with 10, 20, 30 plus more pounds of muscle, you are going to burn way more calories a day. Most of the research shows 6 to 10 calories per pound of lean tissue, which I think is an underestimate for reasons we actually mentioned in our book, Eat It. Yeah, I think it's an underestimate because I think people who have more... Look, on a BMR level, I'm sure it's accurate. I'm not going to argue with the scientists. Yeah. But on a total daily energy expenditure perspective, I think that the person who has 25 pounds more muscle lives their life completely differently, can do more things, helps their friend moves around. When they are training, they're burning more calories training, like takes more steps, does more things, is healthier, and ends up burning more calories, which allows you to eat more in the future, which allows you to live a lifestyle that lets you enjoy more things, more food, more events, and still not gain fat in the process. If you've added 300 calories to your total daily energy expenditure, and you can eat 2,400 instead of 2,100 to maintain, that's a lot. I mean, that's 2,100 calories a week. That's over 8,000 calories a month that you get to be eating without gaining fat that you wouldn't have if you didn't make strength training the core of your training regimen. If you only focused on cardio to get that, rapid fat loss, create a big deficit, and then do cardio on top of it to lose as much weight and fat as possible, cool. That might maximize the scale number in the short term, but in the long term, it doesn't help with maintaining that progress. It doesn't help with how you feel. It doesn't help with functionality, and it doesn't help with the ability to stay leaner in the future, and it doesn't help with aesthetics, looking better. So weight training or cardio for fat loss, if I had to pick one, I would say weight training. I could go on, but I've been talking for a long time.
Keep going, bro. Keep going. This is great.
There are... I'm not, you could actually go in on this if you want to, or don't even touch it. But what I'm not saying with all of that is that you shouldn't do any cardio. And I have in the past said you shouldn't do any cardio when I was young and dumb and only thinking about things from an aesthetic perspective and not thinking about heart health, not thinking about longevity, only thinking about time, only thinking, okay, how can I create a calorie deficit in the most efficient way possible? Oh, okay, I can burn 200 calories in 45 minutes of low intensity cardio. I could also not eat those handful of Oreos, and one takes 45 minutes, one takes 45 seconds. Boom, I just did that. Now I can take those 45 minutes, focus on work. That's where my mind was. Cardio can be beneficial in many situations during a fat loss phase. One, if you've lost a good amount of body fat and you get to a place where you've stalled out a bit and you've been consistent with your nutrition and maybe your coach has reduced your intake a little bit over time and you don't want to further reduce your intake, increasing calorie expenditure via cardio is a really good idea. Makes a lot of sense in that situation. It makes a lot of sense just for general health and for longevity and for heart health and for living longer and for feeling better and for performance. Cardio is a really good idea on all of those fronts. But specifically for fat loss, the pillar of your training regimen during a fat loss phase, cardio versus weight training, should be weight training.
I really think that point that you brought up around, like about 6 to 8 calories per pound of muscle is what that, biologically that muscle, that's how much energy it will burn a day, an extra 6 to 8 calories. And I think a pound of fat will burn like an extra like 2 to 4 or something. It's not like fat is inactive, but so
what I remember seeing, and this could have changed probably more than a year ago that I've seen this, was like 3 to 6 for fat and 6 to 10 for muscle.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So either in that range. So we'll call it let's call it 3 for fat, 8 for muscle.
Sure.
Right. What's interesting to me, and I don't think this is going to be a clip. I don't think it will make sense in a clip. We'll see. But what's interesting for me is the lifestyle modifications as a result of having more or less of either of those, right? And this is really what you were talking about, where, yeah, maybe a pound of muscle maybe only burns an extra 8 calories per pound. But what happens if you increase your muscle by 15, 20 pounds, right? It's not an extraordinary number of extra calories burnt just from having that muscle, but what does your life look like as a result of having that muscle? How much more active are you, not even just right now, but how much more active can you be as you age because you have that strength and muscle? What happens if you don't have that strength and muscle and you've been gaining more and more pounds of fat, right? Well, what happens? Like, how active can you be? How much less are you going to do as you age because of that? Every year you add 5, 10 more pounds of fat, whatever it is. It might not seem like that much in a short term, but over 10, 15, 20 years, you've been consistently adding this fat, not building muscle. The amount of calories you burn goes down dramatically, but the lifestyle that happens as a result of it, I think, is dramatically different. And that's where the calorie burn from having more muscle actually matters the most, is what does your lifestyle look like? And I was just listening to Peter Attia on his podcast recently, and he was talking about how right around 70, there seems to be this cliff. This cliff that people drop off once they hit 70, where it's like strength goes down, muscle goes down, activity goes down dramatically. And it seems like the best way to combat that is to build muscle. And obviously your habits and all of that, but if your habits are helping you build muscle, then that muscle will help you maintain those habits, right? It's like, if you don't have that, then it's going to be dramatically more difficult. So if you want to live as long as you can with the highest quality of life, it's obviously, listen, I'm no bodybuilder. I don't have like muscle, like tons and tons and tons of muscle. Like I don't look jacked, but building enough to where you can function and move and perform at a higher level as you age is just, it's so important.
Yeah, there's definitely a optimal amount of muscle for longevity. Like, if you even looking at the best bodybuilders and lifespan and frequency of heart attacks and there's a lot of drugs and things that affect that, but it's hard for the organs of the body to maintain such a massive body. But on the other side, if you have a very high body fat percentage and very little lean tissue, that also, like, the research is clear that the longevity outcomes and lifespan are worse in that situation. You die earlier. And so, yeah, another benefit of making weight training the pillar of your training and building that habit even during fat loss phases is that you continue doing that over your lifespan. I've talked a lot over the years and when I was making content about getting my dad into weight training, and he was a former, he was a college athlete, played goalie, like had a real shot in the pros. Like, he had an athletic background, didn't do anything from 27, 28 until 55. I mean, didn't do anything, worked his ass off his whole life, but like wasn't like, he was providing for our family. He wasn't like in the gym, and got him into that. And he's benefited tremendously. My mom actually in the last year has started to get really consistent with her training, and she's six.
Oh, nice.
She's 60, I think. 60 or 61. I think she's 60. But like you mentioned, 70 as a cliff, when you can even like 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week of strength training, and having more muscle and being stronger, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 80, like, it matters so much for not falling, for not breaking bones, for bone health, especially for women. Everything is fighting against you as you get older. and just for living longer and a better quality of life in those later years. If you can make that a habit, the earlier you can, the better.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was, because I was thinking about, it's very clear that if you have a severe amount of excess body fat, it's not going to be good for you, for your health. It's also pretty obvious based on just even anecdotal research, but like just looking at people, like if you have excessive amounts of muscle, like if you're huge, odds are it's also probably not that good for you. And I think it's largely because of the stress that it puts on your body, your organs, your heart, all of that. The other day, I just Google searched. I wanted to get an actual like picture in my head. I Googled the top 100 oldest people in the world, and I imaged it. And it's so interesting. I couldn't find just like one picture with all of them, but I found articles with all of them there. And I like was looking at dude, people like well into their hundreds, like 104, 109, 114. And it's so like, they all look, I mean, obviously they look old as fuck, obviously, but like they look fit, you can't be 100 and not look old as fuck. Like they look old as, but like they look fit, and they're like, like they don't look like, they don't look like anything crazy from a physique perspective, like they were ever like a bodybuilder or anything like that, but they also don't look like they were on the other end of the spectrum. They're just like fit people who moved on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. Mm-hmm. That is just, it's so interesting to me. It doesn't look like they were huge hulking people, but nor were they like on the other end of the spectrum, like gluttonous people. Mm-hmm. It's just, for me, it's just like moderation clearly seems to win out. But, to answer that question, going back to, strength or cardio for weight loss, that does then make me wonder. It's not either or. It's just not either or. Do both is really what it boils down to. You should be doing fucking both. That's it.
Yeah, completely agree. And both doesn't necessarily mean that you need to like, run a 5-minute mile and do 20 hill sprints a day. Like your cardio doesn't need to be, high school sports style, go till you puke cardio. Like, the research better than I do on this, but seemingly a few hours of zone 2 cardio a week seems to provide the majority of the longevity and the majority of the heart health benefits.
100%. And if anyone's doing 20 sets of hill sprints in your programming, your shit is broken. You should not be doing it like that. You will be destroyed. That is a terrible idea.
Yeah. Not fun.
I remember when I put Gary through some hill sprints at his parents' house, his calves were sore for like a week after that. He was like, "We're never doing that again."
Yeah, he does not like that. I like that. I think just pod random strategy talk in general. So many like gurus and business coaches and mastermind funnel entrepreneur whatever's like so much of what they say is hyper focused on money and business and like strategies and cold DMing and all outsourcing them, yada yada. And by the way, anytime I open my Instagram app, I get so many sponsored posts from like nobody doofuses trying to get me to join their 20,000 whatever program. I'm like, who are you? Do you lift? Like, what is this? You look like you're standing in front of a rented house. Like, so silly. But I like, and not only do I like talking about this stuff with you, but I also think it's a beneficial content strategy because I think a lot of coaches like to hear it and a lot of non-coaches like to hear it, which is continuing to talk about, like for the last, 20 minutes, talking about fitness related subjects that can be applied to clients rather than on just like tactical make more money. Because if you get good at coaching and if you get smart at training, nutrition, etc., you can serve your clients better. Business grows on the back end of that. Like I think it's a win-win-win all around rather than just being hyper business focused.
100%. We were talking about this on the Mentorship Live Q&A yesterday. We were talking about the launch, and I forget who it was. Someone was talking about they were struggling with the launch and how they didn't want to sell. Mm-hmm. And what we've always said is the best sales tactic is being an amazing coach that gives away incredible content for free. If you want people to sign up for your program, yes, copywriting can help. Yes, understanding email marketing can help. Yes, understanding psychology can help. Yes, all of this can help. Sales tactics, all that, it can help. I'm not saying it's worthless. But if you don't want to have to do that shit, if you don't want to have to learn copywriting, if you don't want to have to learn marketing, if you don't want to have to learn any of this stuff, you could build an unbelievably successful coaching business where you have a wait list and people wanting to work with you from all over the world just because you are really good at what you do and you give amazing, helpful, practically applicable content for free online every day for years. That's it. You don't need to learn marketing. You don't need to learn copywriting. You don't need to learn email funnels if you're a good coach who gives great content for free. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it. So the best sales strategy, be a great coach that helps people for free and you will never go out of business.
Yeah, I love that.
Clips Nation.
Man, you're such a P. You can just make clips out of thin air. You don't need to plan. You don't need to have a question. You're just like, see it, make it. Clip Nation.
Eat it.
Believe it. Lift it. Eat it.
See, believe, achieve. All right. Question. Can you bank steps like calories as long as you average them out to 70,000 per week? What do you think, Mike?
So just to explain the concept, if you burn 2,500 calories a day and you want to lose body fat, you don't need to eat 2,000 calories exactly every single day for the week to lose 1 pound. You could eat 1,800 one day, 2,200 another day, 2,500 one day, 1,500 one day. If it averages out to 2,000, that's banking. You can have a few super low calorie days, weekend warrior, for example, Monday through Thursday, like in a more extreme deficit, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, closer to maintenance, fits your lifestyle better. What matters most is the weekly average, banking calories. Can you bank steps? I think that you can. I mean, are we talking about for the purposes of health? Here, I do bank steps because there are certain days where I decide to go on like a really long walk. I get 16,000 steps in one day. I get 18,000 steps in, whatever. And then the next day, I'm just not going to move as much. If I'm keeping nutrition pretty consistent, I don't have as much energy. Maybe I only take 5,000 steps the next day. My gut and intuition is that if it averages, your weekly average matters way more than hitting an exact number each day.
Yeah, I think that looking at like the annual average is a really good way to look at it. I like looking at, okay, over the last year, what was your average daily step count? I think that's a really good way to look at it. It's funny, with banking calories, I prefer using a week-to-week approach. I don't want to use like a monthly or annual approach with that because then you could just have like ridiculous like binge days that don't make sense. With steps, I actually prefer to zoom out and look at your overall year because that tells you what did your year look like from an activity perspective. Whereas if you do it from a week perspective, I know there are going to be some people out there who are like, okay, I'll just sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 5 days and then spend 2 days and go outrageously insane. And that's when, aside from the potential negative health effects of that, but that's when you get injured. That's when you hurt yourself. That's what it doesn't make sense. So I think for me, yes, most important annual average steps per day is a really, really good way to look at it. But I also, the more I get into this and look at this stuff, I think it's really fucking important to move. Now, for example, I was really sick the other week during Thanksgiving week. There were a couple days where I got a couple hundred steps because I was sick in bed and I couldn't move, and that's fine. There are some days, like occasionally, where just here with the family and we hang out, watch documentaries all day, we relax, like don't get that many steps. But that's like 1% of my year. In terms of like that's not many days. I really think in terms of just overall circulation, overall we'll take mental and emotional health out of it, just purely physiological. I think getting up and moving, even if it's just stretching or whatever, but moving is so it should be a daily practice, like brushing your teeth, like whatever it is. Like I think it's better off being a daily practice as opposed to thinking of I'm deliberately going to try and bank these. I do think, and this is all based up in my head, I think you'll get better health results if you move every day than if you try and bank them.
Well, it's interesting. Two things. When I hear bank, I think like, oh, I can have some days that are only 5,000. I don't think, oh, I'm going to have days where I don't walk at all because I would feel terrible after like 2 of those in a row. And so it's interesting when you think that, and I assume you're right, you're the people guy, that if people, or at least a subset of people hear that you can bank steps, it's, oh, cool. I'm not going to take any for 5 days. And then I'm going to do 25,000 on Saturday and 25,000 on Sunday to hit 50K for the week. Like in my mind, it's like, why would anyone want to do that when you know that that's going to make you feel terrible?
Well, dude, I think just looking at population-based numbers.
No, I agree with you.
So many people are sedentary, getting less than 2,000 a day, like easy. Mm-hmm. Most people, I think, are sub 2,000. So if they hear they can bank it, then they'll be like, well, then I won't move at all. I'm going to get one of these electric wheelchairs, move around. Like I'm not going to take any steps until the weekend comes. And they're just
like 5 p.m. on Sunday. And they're like, okay, I have 7 hours to take 40,000 steps.
Bro, I know people would do that. I know for a fact.
It's fascinating. Once you internalize the fact, this is like, we've had this discussion and you've been impressed with my ability to do this historically, is when I'm about to eat a food, think about how is this food going to make me feel 60 to 90 minutes from now?
Yeah, you're very good with that.
And like, I know that the 6 chocolate chip cookies are going to be like heroin on my tongue right now, but I know that I'm not going to feel as good as if I have the protein shake and banana or whatever, and can do that. Same thing with steps at this point, and it's probably way easier when you're at a adequate cardiovascular base, strength base, and a healthy body fat percentage. I think it's easier to make these decisions and like be more in tune with this. I just have fully internalized that movement leads to me feeling better. There's actually there's some research showing what a 20-minute walk does. We should link, you know what? Let's link this up. We're going to link this up in the show notes. I saw a recent thread on this, but some research backing it up. A 20-minute walk leads to like all these insane improvements in ability to focus immediately after, performance on like some cognitive tests immediately after. You know, they showed the brain scans of sedentary 20 minutes compared to just went on a 20-minute walk. The walk is just all lit up. There's so many benefits. And a lot of this was in the context of school and recess. A lot of schools are taking away recess, or like we were talking this morning about this, like, oh, it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Like recess is canceled today. It's like these kids are only getting 20 minutes a day. You're taking that away from them. Like it's so detrimental to not only their physical health, but also their ability to learn. Like that movement is so important.
Man, it's so funny. Like my wife and daughter and I, we all spent Saturday. We went on a long walk, went around the park, went out to buy to eat, and we were walking for a while. And it was just like, dude, walking outside is the best.
The best.
It's the best. It's like the fresh air, the movement. It's just like, it feels so good to, especially when the weather is like at least okay. It's the best. And man, we really need to make walking great again.
Yeah, 100%. I immediately start trying to steel man the other side of the conversation.
Why do you do that?
Because I think it's
are you trying to imagine what other people would say?
Nope. I'm trying to be as intellectually honest as possible.
Cool. Okay. Got it.
Because I know, like, I have a way easier time executing on this right now than I did when I was straight out of college, working my public accounting job in busy season, auditing, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, working half days on Saturday, expectation to have your computer open at home on Sunday, like 45-minute commute both ways, 0 degrees, January, Minnesota. Like it was not easy at all to get activity in. And so certain people's lifestyles do make it much, much more difficult. And then you end up getting in a hole, right? In a hole in many ways. You add body fat, you stop training consistently. Sleep is probably the biggest one, to be honest. I've come to realize over the last few years, like people who are chronically deprived of sleep, more difficult making nutrition decisions, less energy to execute on getting those steps in and movement. And like it spirals negative, but you have obligations and things in your life. You get what I'm saying? Bottom line is it's harder for a lot of people to do this, which doesn't invalidate its importance, but
there's a difference between like whether or not it's harder and just the fact of like what of its importance,
Agreed.
right? It's like the fact is this is important. This is what needs to be done in order to optimize health. But I mean, I understand like when I was, coaching Gary, living in my like 400 square foot apartment, traveling all the time, barely able to work out, barely getting any steps, like working like crazy. I don't think with all the knowledge that I have now, if I were to randomly be warped back into that time, I don't think I would change anything. I think I would do it exactly as I did it, knowing that it wasn't good for me, but also knowing I can turn it around as soon as I want. Once my life changes and once I have the ability to prioritize myself and prioritize like my health and get more steps in, like I think I would do the exact same thing right over again. Just because I don't know. I think like what I did then allows me to do what I do now.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So I mean,
periods of imbalance in life.
Yeah. And it's harder. Yeah. Like different people have different levels of difficulty in their life for different things. Like, yeah, it's harder, but it's a fucking fact. Period. I'm sorry that it's harder for you. So we can make a decision. What do you do now?
There's also a very interesting discussion to be had that we don't have to. We probably shouldn't. We're getting close to the end of this. But when I hear you say, like, if I go back, I do it exactly the same, and I hope that the outcome would be the same. What's interesting is if you run that simulation thousands of times, and maybe this means that you have to run it with different people because personalities and like everyone's different. But what you were during that period was hyper singularly focused versus now where you have more breadth and variety in your life and how you spend your time between hobbies, personal fitness, wife, child, relationships, like, and work, and how you've balanced everything. Whereas then it was like purely work growth. A lot of people who go purely work growth never get out of that.
That is interesting. I honestly think for me, there are many reasons. Dude, there's so many reasons why I think that is. I think part of it is because I spent time being able to travel and seeing a lifestyle that I would like. I think part of it is also being lucky to have enough mentors to see what their lives were like and knowing, okay, I can take what I like, leave what I don't like. For example, like watching Gary's life. Early on, I got really sucked in. I was like, I want this. Like, I want to live like this. But after 3 years, I was like,
I'm tired.
I don't want to live. I'm exhausted. I don't have this guy's DNA. Like, I don't have it. And I wonder how many people stay on whatever track they're on, either because they feel like they're supposed to, or because they feel like the thought of changing it is scary. Like, what could that, like, the devil is better than the devil you don't type thing. Like, you know what? Like, I'm on this track. It is what it is. I'm just going to stay here because I don't know what will happen if I go the other way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think there are lots of people who make the decision to stay because they don't know. Like, the known is way easier than the unknown. With Gary specifically, I think he continues to live this way because this is how he's built, and this is the only, like, he loves having his schedule packed, minute to minute, scheduled all the way out. Like, boredom would crush him. He loves the way that he has it set up. And for me, I don't love having a packed schedule at all. Quite the opposite. I like more freedom and flexibility within my day. And I fell into the trap just like you. When I rolled off Gary in 2016 and you started with him, I was like, yep, I'm going to build a massive fitness company. Maybe it'll be like the VaynerMedia Fitness. Like, and quickly realized that no, that's not how I'm built. That's not what I want. And that's okay. Yeah. So getting to see it, that's an interesting point. Getting to see other people live it gives you the insight required to understand what you do and don't want for yourself.
Dude, I want to ask you a question. I know we're getting to the end. I know I've probably taken all your coins. Are you able to talk about something a little bit more philosophical?
Oh, jeez. Okay.
It's not Clips Nation based.
We might be ending the podcast right here. Yeah, let's go.
All right, we'll see. So, devil you know is better than devil you don't, right? JP says this a lot, talks about it a lot. I don't know if I believe that to be so blanket true. Devil you know is better than devil you don't. You know, do you know what I mean?
Are you saying that statement is okay?
Either I don't fully understand the statement, or I don't know if I always agree with that statement.
When I hear that statement, I just think that people are afraid of change.
Okay, cool. Then that's correct. Yeah.
Is that not what you interpret by that statement?
That is one way that I was like, maybe that's what he means. But when I hear the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, is that the correct phrase? Is that like that's?
No, I don't use it.
Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. That's the saying. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Okay, so this is why I've struggled with this one, is because, and when you're saying better the devil you know than the devil you don't, is you're giving up an opportunity
for something better,
to see a huge change for something better, right? Because what you're essentially saying is, well, you don't want to change because it could be worse than it is right now. But what if it's not? Right? What if it's not? And like, if you just keep doing exactly what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be a person, it could be a situation in your life. It could be whatever it is. It's like, essentially what you're saying is just to resign yourself to do exactly what you're doing, because if you make a change, it might be worse. But if you have the mindset of I'll change and I can change, you can deal with any devil that comes your way and always change and audible and move. Football term, audible. You know, you could always change and try and get better and improve. I don't like the saying better the devil you know than the devil you don't, because it prevents you from wanting to make a change.
I agree with you. I think you're right. I think it's a bad saying. I think it's a saying that I wouldn't want to live my life by.
Yeah.
Like, continue to do this thing that I don't like for the next 60 years because I'm afraid that what I switch to is going to be worse. No, I'm going to switch, and then I could switch again if I want or need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good little philosophical talk on the pod as well.
Yeah. A little philosophical to wrap it up. Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate you. We upload weekly, Tuesdays, video pods, cross-platform, high frequency. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, great week. Get after that strength training. Get after that cardio. We'll see you soon.
Leave us a review. 5-star. Nothing less. Love you. See ya.
Bye.